Hummer used to be its own make, but it's been a General Motors brand since 1998, and it helped to define the early aughts as the vehicle of choice for influencers before that was even a thing. Then, of course, the economic downturn did away with those vehicles for a time. Y2K fashion is back. We've got jelly sandals out there, going out tops, track jackets, and Hummer is back, this time as a GMC model, but with a very 2020 twist. It's fully electric. At CarGurus, we stay on top of all the latest models. This super truck is no exception. Please subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a thing. Let's check out the Hummer EV pickup. This is Edition 1, which is the only trim currently available, so that means it's well equipped. It also means it's white. Interstellar white, only color you can get right now. It's very iMac, remember that from back in the day? And the styling has been updated for the modern era, but it still definitely recalls the H2, partly because it's blocky, but also because it's just overwhelmingly wide in the proportions. It's really the first thing you notice. This is actually, with the mirrors out, 7.5 feet wide, so it's wider than a heavy-duty Silverado. This has the modern take on the H2's blingy grille, so instead of a lot of chrome, we have a lot of light. Very much an electric vehicle thing to do. It still has Hummer spelled out across the front, like knuckle tattoos. The Extreme Off-Road package is part of the Edition 1 kit, which means we've got underbody armor. It also means that we've got 18-inch wheels and these enormous 35-inch Goodyear Wrangler Territory tires. It's got a 5-foot bed, so pretty close to the Chevy Colorados, with the famous GM Multi-Pro tailgate, which is powered. And it's got the integrated sound system down here. Voila. The tonneau cover is also powered, just handy. So is the rear drop glass, which is really kind of a luxury feature. My favorite thing though is that the frunk, or what GMC is calling the E-trunk, is powered. And here's why I've been using that. The Infinity roof, which is standard on Edition 1, has removable sky panels, and they fit in the frunk. There are even bags provided for each individual panel so you don't scratch them. And I have to tell you, it could not be any easier to take these things off or to put them back on. The panels aren't too heavy, they stow away neatly, it's super easy to slide them back into place and lock them in. I have a hardtop convertible and I struggle to put the top back on even with help, so I'm very impressed by this. You can also remove the front eye bar with the provided tools. While we're blurring the lines between inside and outside, let's talk interior. With the Edition 1, there's just one option. It's this lunar horizon color scheme, and it comes with this topographical map motif showing the Sea of Tranquility. So that moon reference both emphasizes the Hummer EV's pioneering nature and harkens back to the days when GM was calling it a moonshot vehicle. It is perfectly comfortable. Obviously, we have plenty of space in here and some really clever storage solutions, like these little cubbies inside the seats, a lot of space under the seats, and it's really, really easy to just lift them right up. It's a little form over function in here in terms of materials, but I'm not complaining about it. It's kind of like what you would get in a Bronco. Remember, you're supposed to be able to take the roof off and take this off-roading. I'm not sure that there's really a solution where you could have something super luxe and also have that level of durability. So just keep in mind the price tag here. It's not about leather or Alcantara. It's about capability, style, and, let's be honest, novelty. So let's talk about what it's like to drive the Hummer EV. First of all, it has to be said, this thing is shockingly maneuverable. I don't think I can adequately convey how strange it is, in a good way. I have a route that I take all of my press cars on, and it involves a pretty tight U-turn, lots of trucks, most trucks, and even some smaller SUVs, which have no business having this issue, have to have multiple point turns to get through that area, but not the Hummer. It has a really tight turning radius. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we can put it up on the screen. That's due to its four-wheel steering, which is also responsible for the famous crab walk feature. We'll get to that. That said, even though it's very maneuverable, it is also huge. There's just no getting around that. So you do have to keep a very close eye on it. Despite how nimble it is, you want to be watching the edges of the lanes, the people in the lanes adjacent to you. The steering is very light, almost detached, almost like a video game. It's that kind of steering that you sometimes hear described as numb. The Hummer EV Edition 1 has 3 motors, 1 for the front axle and 2 for the rear axle, which gives it E4-wheel drive. GMC says it has 1,000 horsepower and more than 1,000 pound-feet of torque. I don't have an exact number. You might have heard that 11,500 pound-feet number that they've been sharing. That's a little misleading because it's not measured the way we normally talk about torque. But that said, these numbers are still impressive. And yes, it is fast. Like a lot of EVs, it doesn't have that latency, that hesitation. It's very zippy. GMC says it can do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds normally, but if you put it in watts to freedom mode, or WTF mode, it'll do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and it feels a lot faster than that when you're in something this big. It does not start to lag at high speeds, highway speeds, like some vehicles do. As fast as you would want to be going in something this size, you can. You do get a little bit of wind noise on the highway through the sky panels. Possibly that's inevitable. The other big thing about highway driving is you really want to be looking far down the road to see when you're going to need to stop. You do not want to get into an emergency braking situation in this thing, or in anything that weighs 9,000 pounds. They're just brakes, they're not magic. I will say having the one pedal drive mode on all the time means that the regeneration is going to help you a little bit with deceleration, and driving this around the city, stop and go traffic, lower speeds, I found this to be the most intuitive one pedal driving experience I've had to date. GMC estimates that it can get up to 350 miles of range on a full charge, and the Hummer EV, at least in Edition 1 spec, is capable of 350 kilowatt DC fast charging if the conditions are right and you can find a hookup that can accommodate that, which is not a guarantee for everyone everywhere. Now, GMC does say that you can add up to 100 miles of range in 10 minutes, but in order to preserve the battery's longevity, it needs to be conditioned first, and according to the manual, that can take up to an hour. You can get the vehicle to do that on the way to the fast charger if you put it into Google Maps. As with any vehicle, there are things you can do and things you can't do with the Hummer EV. For example, you cannot park it in a compact parking spot, or for that matter, many parking garages. It's not the height, it's the width that's really the issue. But you can do things like tow up to 7,500 pounds or go off-road, all without burning through a ton of fossil fuels, so that's pretty cool. Ground clearance sits at 10.1 inches normally, but terrain mode lifts that up to 11.9 inches with an approach angle of 44.3 degrees, a departure angle of 33.7, and a breakover angle of 25.4, and it makes the vehicle capable of fording 28 inches of water. That does fall short of the Jeep Wrangler's specs, but in extract mode, you get 15.9 inches of ground clearance, wider angles, and 32 inches of water fording depth, which comes pretty close. If you are going to take this off-road, be aware that there is not a spare tire. There is a tire inflation kit, but of course that's only going to be useful if the damage that you've sustained is patchable. Otherwise, you're basically SOL until somebody comes to get you, in which case, let's hope they can tow more than 7,500 pounds, because this is 9,000. For really tight spots, there is, of course, the famous crab walk mode, and without further ado, let's see that in action. It also comes with a 3-year subscription to GM Super Cruise, which is a hands-free highway driving system that works on over 200,000 miles of compatible roads in North America. Now, an interesting safety note, because of the removable roof panels, this Hummer EV does not have side curtain airbags. Obviously, they're not required. This is a production vehicle, but they are increasingly preferred by the IIHS and the NHTSA. Neither of those organizations have rated this yet. What side curtain airbags do is prevent occupants from being ejected from the vehicle in the event of a rollover. So you probably were going to do this anyway, but try not to roll it over. Now, what it does have, and thank goodness, is standard blind spot monitoring, which is really, really useful in this vehicle. And I at first thought that the number of camera views, there are many camera views, was a little excessive, but let me tell you, I had an experience where it was surprisingly useful. I was in rush hour traffic, bumper to bumper in a rotary, and people kept cutting me off. And I thought, I am being judged based on this vehicle. People are seeing the Hummer, they're thinking that I'm something that starts with an A and ends with a hole. They probably don't know that it's electric, and they're just gonna keep cutting me off and I'm never gonna get home. Finally, turned on the cameras and realized I was leaving a ton of space. I just couldn't tell how close I was to the vehicle in front because I can't see over the hood. I've got the seat bumped all the way up right now. So cameras are really useful in traffic too. In terms of tech, it's got all the things you'd expect from a luxury truck, like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, Sirius XM, a 14-speaker Bose sound system, and Google Maps are built in. And the displays are actually really cool. GMC worked with Epic Games and used their Unreal Engine technology, and the graphics really do impress. I love switching drive modes just to see this. Personally, I don't hate how the 13.4-inch infotainment display and the 12.3-inch driver information screen are smacked on here like tablets. I know a lot of people complain about that. To me, especially in this vehicle, it just seems like no one's trying to trick me. They're not integrated, that's fine. It is what it is. Remember, this is pretty utilitarian. You're supposed to be able to hose it down. On that note, these hard controls, I like that we have hard controls for everything. They don't feel especially premium, but I think they work fine, and I do like how certain buttons can activate others around them. I mentioned the cameras. It's got 18 total, including these waterproof under bed cameras, which have their own washer function and replaceable lens protectors. They all add up to what GMC calls Ultra Vision, which is nifty and useful. Let's get price out of the way. The MSRP for the Hummer EV pickup in Edition 1 comes to $108,700. And today, as tested, the version we've seen comes to $110,295. That's only because of the destination fee, because remember, this is very well equipped. It's the top trim, or it will be when there are other trims. So if any Hummer deserves to be in Grand Wagoneer territory, it's this one. And that means we really can't compare it to something like the base model Rivian R1T or the base model Ford F-150 Lightning, because that's not apples to apples. It's apples to some fruit that only grows on private islands. I spec'd an R1T on the website and got it to $97,400, and the F-150 Lightning top trim starts right around $98,000 and goes up from there. So that does help to give this some context and make it seem a little less outrageous. Here's the thing, this is not likely going to be anybody's sole vehicle or daily driver, right? And nor should it be. Living with it this week was exhausting, just out of pure anxiety over whether it was gonna fit wherever I needed it to when I got to my destination. This is more like somebody's second or third or fourth vehicle. It's a treat yourself toy. If I were in the market for one of those, I think I'd go for it. Let me tell you why. You certainly can get another electric pickup truck. There's the Rivian R1T, like we mentioned, the F-150 Lightning, Silverado EV is coming soon, maybe a Cybertruck someday, and there will certainly be others. You also could get what I might call an over-the-top truck, like an F-150 Raptor or a Ram TRX. And you can get a very stylish off-roader, Jeep Wrangler, Ford Bronco. Those are all itches that you can get scratched elsewhere. But I don't know of any other vehicle at the moment that checks all of those boxes in one package. And for that reason, I would go for it. That's my take on the Hummer EV. Let us know what you think in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel and check back soon because we'll be driving something else next week.